Today, on Locked On Phoenix Suns, Team USA squeaks by with a victory over Serbia. They are headed to the gold medal game, and who else closed the door on Serbia but Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns representative. We'll break down the game and why KD continues to wow us next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Brendon Kleen, your host, and a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons. Welcome in. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to kick off your Friday, or maybe you're listening to this post-game after Team USA's big win over Serbia. Wherever you're finding us, whenever you're finding us, hit follow, hit subscribe. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. Hit that button, get a new episode in your feed Monday, Wednesday, and Friday through the month of August, back to daily starting in September. Become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right here on the show all through the season. Joining us as he does every single Friday is Stephen Prajone Garner, a writer at Bright Side of the Sun, a contributor at the All City Network. We're going to get to some silliness in the rumor mill to close out the show related to one Kevin Durant, but let's start with his fourth quarter killer mode. I don't know what to call it. He closed out the biggest game of this Olympics, Stephen, for Team USA. Only ends with 9 points, but hit a couple of the biggest shots of the entire tournament for this team. So we got to get to that, and we'll play a little game bringing the Olympics back to the NBA world in the next segment. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. The playoffs aren't around. Baseball, all these weird things. The sports aren't quite what we want them to be this time of year, but this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with the booster or bonus daily. Something for everybody, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Steven, give me your thoughts on what KD did to close out this game. Kind of the thing we all have come to expect, but a quiet game overall. How did he get the job done after a relatively quiet day?
Well, I'm going to put this in the most nuanced, most intricate, most layered way that I possibly can.
All right, give it to me.
Kevin Wayne Durant was Kevin Wayne Durant. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all. Serbia, extremely to their credit, was very in tune with their defensive coverages, with their defensive principles, and the general scheme and approach for this game against Team USA, knowing that you wouldn't survive playing 1 or 2 or even 3 of the same defenses being cycled through over the course of 40 minutes. To that point, sometimes you just have these few Marvel type of players that are scheme-proof, and whatever it is their strength is. Jokic is very much that as a scorer and a passer. LeBron James has been very much that over the entire his life as a scorer and a passer. Kevin Durant is very much that as a scorer. And it's when he has a particular mindset where he's not settling for, the stagnant type of jump shots. Kevin Durant is a player that was the first proverbial unicorn in the modern NBA for a reason. He doesn't have to just catch the ball in the post and take 0 dribble pull-ups, though he can do that if he really wanted to. He doesn't have to just play second side at catch and shoot or play as a screener and play out for the pop. He can put the ball on the deck, can shimmy and shake with the best of the players and shiftiness on the perimeter. And when he creates space, it takes a ×10 multiplier because of his 7-5 release point on his jump shot. So it's like, where do you win? And then you add to that in the layers, you got Devin Booker space to one side of him, and then on the other side of him is Stephen Curry. So there's no help coming from anywhere. So he was just quite literally himself.
Yeah, that's about as complicated, I think, as it really was there. It was just who's going to make shots. Serbia's chucking threes on one end. I'm not sure why there have been so many moments in this tournament for them where the obvious way to counter what the opponent is doing in these late game situations, just to get Jokic as close to the basket as possible and see what happens, and they aren't doing that. And on the other side, you had Team USA make a big push. Book did contribute to that, had a big shot at one point during the run. Steph with the 3 to give Team USA the lead, and then KD there to close it out. It was funny, this was basically like the ultimate answer to the test that, you might do with your friends if you all love basketball, or that we might all just kind of do in our heads from time to time, of like shot for your life, playground game to 11, who are you giving it to? Like this is the test of that. And you could hear it in real time. Noah Eagle on the call, Dwayne Wade on the call. Even they weren't sure where the ball was going, and LeBron has it. Looks like KD was supposed to set a screen for Steph, who was then supposed to set a screen for LeBron. It ends up with just kind of KD wiggling free, and nobody's worried. That's not a bad outcome at all, and they trust him, and he makes Serbia pay. Like you said, nobody on that team. It had to be a team defense for this Serbia squad to have any chance of stopping the Americans enough to win a game, even as hot as they were from three and everything else. There was going to have to be some team defense, but once it gets into those one-on-one situations, nobody on that team was going to be able to stop Kevin Durant. And it's funny to me too, like we talk about him so much as with these injuries, right? That he can come back like he did in game one of the group stage, and it's like he never was hurt, and he goes off for whatever 30 or so in that game. But it's also in these other moments where he doesn't need to be in rhythm. He doesn't need to get hot in order to do this. And that, like, I'm not sure if there's another player in the whole league, in the whole world, if we're talking Olympics, who can turn it on like he can. He could be 0 for 10. He could be 0 for 0 and have not even taken a shot, and he'll still nail that one when he needs to.
And that, for that exact reason, is why when we have these all-time great discussions and all of these things, I know context matters. I'm one of the biggest context people, but Kevin Durant is, for my money, for my betting odds, just the best pure scorer the game has seen so far. And it's because of context, like the one you just applied to the moment that he had to ultimately get back to the gold medal round again, I believe his fourth time now with Team USA. You talked about him not scoring much, and not even taking that many shots over the course of the game. But in the fourth quarter, rhythm, all of that stuff, it just comes back down to reps. And when you do things at game speed consistently to the extent that it's something that we've all been taught that from the youngest point of playing sports. Treat every practice rep like a game rep. Now, somewhere in translation is lost with most athletes. Even the most superb athletes don't even replicate it to the extent that Kevin Durant does. So for something so basic to really be marveled at when it comes to Kevin Durant, he's garnered moments like this, moments time after time over his career because of it. It's just literally the work paying off for him. He's just quite literally out there working out. So for him, the moment doesn't matter whether I took a shot 30 seconds ago or I took a shot 30 minutes ago or 2 hours ago. It just doesn't matter, just because you reach a certain threshold with your reps where, for me and you, we could just wake up and podcast. You don't have to think about it. Obviously,
I love the comparison to KD. Are we the KD of podcasters?
Right. That's right. No, we put this work in. We gotta get the comp. Oh, for sure. For sure. But yeah, that's what it is for him. Is what he does. He takes his craft extremely seriously. And all you have to do is present him with an opportunity to do what he's born to do. And he's going to do what he does as well as anybody else in the history of basketball has.
You know what I thought of when you were talking about practicing at game speed was that clip going around of Patrick Mahomes spinning on the pole like we all used to do, at recess or outside in the backyard, and throwing the football to the target practice nets. There is a level where you reach where I don't think you have to practice the same way. You've earned the benefit of the doubt. I think Pat Mahomes is there. KD's there too, but he still does it. But yeah, absolutely. These are the moments you do it for, right? And so I thought it was awesome. I mean, shout out to Steph Curry as well, just given that he over game was cold and then finally broke through. And imagine if he had the type of game he had been having today. I'm not sure that they get through this whole thing, and especially that first quarter to match Serbia getting hot. They really needed Steph. I think he had 4 threes in the first quarter. So this was a pretty perfect Team USA win. It was a little bit of everybody. Embiid had his moment. LeBron, who you mentioned. I mentioned Book had a big shot. Durant. And, that was enough to catch and throw some punches back at an opponent's best shot, and that's kind of what you expect it to look like. All right, let's talk, though, about the NBA side of this. The Suns, obviously very well represented on Team USA and, might I add, in the closing lineup that got the job done on Thursday. But there's a ton of NBA players across this whole tournament, and if you look closely, you could, and I will, make the case that the Suns are coming out looking better than anyone out of this tournament. We'll talk through that next. First, today's show brought to you by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with a bunch of activities for your family, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it can be hard to make that time for it when all the other regular, everyday life stuff is a little bit busy, a little bit messy, a little bit out of control. Maybe you're a gym person. Maybe you're a physical activity person. You understand what those non-negotiables look like. I got to get outside. I got to do this. I got to do that. Maybe therapy day can be another non-negotiable for you to help keep that mess, that busyness in check and keep your priorities where you want them to be. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. I've said it before. I will say it again. It doesn't have to be an emergency, trauma, anything super out of the ordinary. It can just be about keeping your life how you want it to be. BetterHelp is entirely online, flexible, convenient, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get started, match with a licensed therapist, and switch at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Steven, let's keep it rolling. So, the Suns, we've talked about it game by game, week by week through these exhibitions and into now the gold medal game. KD, Book, doing everything you could possibly have wanted them to do to buy into a role, earn the respect and trust of this coaching staff, and be on the floor to make an impact when it counts. You can't say that the same way for everybody, and so I wanted to just take a look. But first, I'm curious, how much do you factor like international basketball into how much you think there can be carryover to the NBA season? I think it matters a lot. Some people say it's a different game, it's a different team environment, it's in its own little world. Where do you stand?
Well, it's definitely a different game in terms of the rules, the pace of play, and like a lot of little things like that matters when you're factoring in you kind of the whole thing into the what we're speaking to. But I also think that more than the external things, the team context is really unique for those two to where they can effectively and efficiently play a particular role and not be asked too often to do something that's external of that role just because of who else is on this roster with them, However, there is balance and contrast with that because I do feel like when you have a super team by NBA standards, meaning obviously back in Phoenix, they have Bradley Beal, the commonality with the Suns and with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on Team USA is that, especially with the additions of Tyus Jones and Monte Morris, they can effectively spend time off the ball and do so without just standing and watching somebody else dribble. And that is, if I was to have an onus or an emphasis for Mike Budenholzer this season, is to figure out how to absolutely optimize spacing, not just as a template in terms of filling bubbles on the perimeter of the court around the primary action. The best teams over the last 7 or 8 years in the NBA are great at spacing, and then there's two other elements to it. There's respacing around that action to make the defense shift in terms of responsibilities and principles, and then there's manipulating space. Those are 3 different levels, and the best teams, the teams that compete in the championship round, get the absolute most of the chess pieces around them by manipulating space after respacing. And that's something that they got into a lot prior to KD getting there with Monty Williams, when there were the likes of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and Jay Crowder and et cetera, that were around the perimeter. They have to get back to that level and then take it even a step past that because of the fact that the types of top-end talents that they have to garner attention off ball. I think for them to optimize what they have on this roster, it has to get there.
Okay, so you're making my case for why Book and KD have reminded us how special they can be in that type of environment. And I'll say again, like I've said every time we've talked about this stuff, that obviously it's never going to be a one-to-one of how great this context is versus any NBA team you could possibly play for, including the Warriors when both Steph and KD were together. It still wasn't even approaching Team USA level of talent and depth and versatility and all that stuff. But I think you're absolutely right on the Suns side of things. The example that I will give, though, to illustrate my point here a little bit too is, because I'm gonna tell you why I don't think a lot of other fan bases are gonna feel as good as you and I feel right now about the guys we cover, the guys we care about. A lot of other fan bases don't feel that way. But the reason that I do take a lot from Olympic basketball, from international basketball, I should say, is that it forces players to confront what they have to do when the winning is the only priority. It's do or die every game, and that context is the best it can possibly be. What are you when that's all true? Tells you a lot about a player, and then how they handle that reality tells you a lot about their mindset and whether they can ever, I think, reach their ceiling. And the two examples that I think of are in the 2021 Olympics and the 2023 World Cup. I'm not going to give you the best of the best examples because those guys don't have to change that much at all, frankly. LeBron's not doing a whole bunch of different things than he typically would do on an NBA court. But these other guys are. And the one of them is Zach LaVine, who I think looked better even on a hampered Team USA with, you know, maybe the B team of what we could put out on an international stage. And Brandon Ingram, who last year in the World Cup struggled to get minutes despite being theoretically one of the more talented overall guys and older guys on that team because he struggled to adapt to a really kind of 3-and-D role, which is what that team needed of him. So when I kind of zoom out, like I look at the other teams that are in this thing, and I'm not going to pile on Jokic. Whatever. I'm not worried about him. He had amazing moments. I think he should have scored more tonight, but I'm not sure if that changes it. But Jamal Murray struggled mightily in this context. I feel like I'm not going to go crazy, but I think the Spurs, Vic, we might be a little further away than like next year the guy's going to get MVP votes or something. Okay? I think that, well, I guess Magic fans probably feel pretty good about how things are going. I look at the Thunder, it's a wash. Is that fair to say? I mean, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He looks about as good as you would have expected. Mm-hmm. But my point is there's more fan bases than not who I think are coming out of this tournament wondering whether it's the Nuggets or it's the Spurs or, I mean, I'm not going to go crazy again with the Bucks, but even on Team USA, the Sixers, what's going on? Is this guy healthy? What's the deal here? And the Suns, we're all just sitting back and watching and going, yeah, the guys we care about, they're perfect for this environment. They fit it to a T. They made impacts when it counts. That's it. That's my point. Nothing huge, but just a reminder that Suns fans should feel pretty damn good right now, and a lot of other fan bases, not so much.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, with the lens that you're looking at that through at all. I think there's some great merit that comes from that, actually. And to kind of in the same alignment with that train of thought, I also think that Miami Heat fans are very much excited to watch the one and only Bam Adebayo return to the South Beach coming into next season, considering the versatility he just continues to grow and evolve into. But to your point, Bam Adebayo is just one player that's representing the Miami Heat. The Phoenix Suns have two players, and not just two players like the Boston Celtics have, but their two best players are representing with Team USA and closing games and playing extremely meaningful moments and extremely meaningful roles with this particular team, and having meaningful moments within all of that, even more so than anything else. So to your point, yes, I completely agree. I would just like to see a lot more of the things that they've shown that they have a propensity and IQ to execute upon in different dynamics than when they just have the ball in their hands applied to their roles with the Phoenix Suns. I kind of spoke to it in the opening. I just really feel like it's extremely important for them because we've seen teams like Denver just load up and help and, do different things like that could consistently be taken advantage of when they decide to play to that. So that's just my big thing. But to your point, though, the overarching point of the second segment, you are absolutely right. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think it's like with some of those, like Ingram, who I mentioned, right? It for him or for Levine or whatever. It's like, how do you get the team situation to allow them to maximize what they are in the NBA and be more in that role, whether they blend into it well or not, which obviously Ingram struggled with. But like, that's kind of the process. For the Suns, it's almost like working backward from that, and it's like having the stars get to do all the limited things that they had to do in this environment as close to that as possible. For some guys, it's like working their way up to what's going to be perfect for them. For the Suns, it's almost like whittling it down. But however you get there, I do think it matters, and there are tons of lessons, as we've talked through this entire tournament, and we'll talk about again after the gold medal game, where I expect both of these guys will be prominently featured. But let's talk about something that I take less seriously coming off of the Olympic environment, which is goofy trade rumors and lazy analysis centered on one Kevin Durant. We'll get there next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. We all love sports here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We never want them to go quiet, but this time of year, the games are not quite what we want them to be. Sports aren't quite what we want them to be. Football's not here yet. Basketball's in kind of a break. Baseball's not enough to keep our attention. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everybody, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com to check it all out and start making the most out of your summer. Personally, what I love when I'm feeling in the mood for sports that aren't quite here right now is futures. And I've told you, I think it's 46.5 still over at FanDuel. The Suns' win total over-under for this upcoming season is undervaluing them. Now, you might think, of course I'm going to say that, but it's like 3 wins lower than they won last year, and the team got better. So you tell me how that makes sense. Maybe that can hold you over until basketball season. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Steven, let's close it out here. In spite of there being more NBA talent on a basketball court in August than we ever get outside of every 4 years, a lot of media and fans online can't help but use this opportunity to dream up who's going to become teammates out of this whole thing. And for whatever reason, because they have a fun handshake together and we know that Ant has an affinity for KD growing up, the media has all decided that that's going to be the pairing. How is KD going to get to Minnesota? Where's Ant going? Is KD going to follow him? Kind of funny to me to pick guys who are like literally a decade apart in age to plot that out with. Personally, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of time to get that all to happen, but more power to you if you think there is. Why is this happening? Why are people doing this? Give me your best guess.
When the on-court happenings of an Olympic, especially through a basketball lens, Olympic showing that's been just multi-layered in terms of the competition, doesn't suffice you. I guess this is what you resort to, which are things that typically would come about on a standard, typical offseason, which this is far from that. But discourse is in just such a space right now to where little things like this or Jason Tatum not playing in one game on a team that's littered with Hall of Famers and multi-time All-Stars and NBA champions and all of this, We got to be better. We have to be better. This is just extremely unrealistic. There's no way it's happening for the timetable that you already spoke to. Also, because why? Like, what would be the reasoning for either of the teams involved with these particular players to even initiate the conversation, yet alone try to push a deal across the finish line? Like,
yeah,
just enjoy the basketball on the court, please. Please.
I think you're right though that yeah, enjoy it. Try to, right? But like,
please.
I think you're right that the lack of suspense with Team USA is a big part of it, where it's like they're going to win every game. This game, I would hope on Friday there will be some actual discussion of the moments, Steph breaking out, and Embiid having finally a really big showing after a struggle all tournament, and the recruitment and all. Like, there's plenty of meat on the bone now, but up to this point there really wasn't. But this also is one of the things that I've always struggled with about the NBA, where LeBron, when he went to Miami, and we consider that like this inflection point of player empowerment, it opened the door for this type of dialogue around the NBA that, frankly, no other sport really has to deal with. Just the imagination of it all, right? Like, NFL, like, there's plenty of drama. There's been months of, are all these Cowboys players going to sign their contracts and stuff that you don't have to look very hard to see on social media or YouTube or whatever. But in the NBA, it's just made up. It's just like legitimate professionals going on to their shows where they get paid a lot of money to provide their analysis, and they just make stuff up. And that counts as content now because, not to put it on LeBron, but because LeBron kind of opened the floodgates for all this stuff. The problem is, not everybody moves with such confidence and control as LeBron. So it just becomes messy around the rest of it. I don't expect anyone else to like answer and have a media company and a podcast and all these things just to do this like LeBron has. But I guess I can see how we got here. I just wish we would be a little more, actually the opposite of creative. I wish we would be a little bit more reasonable if we're going to have conversations like this. Because honestly, history tells us most likely in the next 3 years or something, there will be some team up in the NBA that you can attribute to this team. That happens almost every single time. But it's lazy to just make it Durant or say, well, he idolized him. There we go. That's going to happen. It's at least try to map it out and make it a good conversation. It's just so basic. It's oh, KD's the most recent guy on this team to have asked for a trade, so guess it has to be him. And there we go. There's our segment. Yeah,
it's unfortunately far too predictable. I saw this. I saw the writing on the wall with this. After they had their moment, and what was it? Game 3, Game 2 was it? I think it was Game 2.
Yeah,
I think it was Game 2. After they had the back and forth moment where N is on a superhuman level in the first round. Naturally, they're going to be on the same team in a couple of months, and these conversations are going to be resurfacing. We're going to see that they're buddy-buddy because they're spending so much time together after they already showed us that there's an affinity between the two in a series where they were going against each other back in May. And actually April, excuse me, because that I don't remember if that made it to May, excuse me. But my point being, this was just far too predictable. I know at some point somebody, I didn't know it would catch this type of win, but I knew somebody would bring it up in discourse. And it's just it does not have to get here. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
No, especially given that I gave KD a lot of credit for going out of his way to do some interviews early on when Team USA camp started to snuff out the nonsense. Mm-hmm. And it's just willful ignorance at this point on the part of anybody who wants to turn rumors around about Durant. It's and the timing, I'm making fun of it. Oh, they're the different ages. I understand that's semantics, but it does kind of matter because it's if you're saying they're going to play together, that's got to happen ASAP. That's got to happen tomorrow. So it's goofy, and I guess I don't think we know how to cover the Olympics very well in America. We don't understand the sports. I understand you're just People are flapping trying to find stuff to talk about, but like this is basketball. We know this one. Just say how impressive it is that, LeBron can still finish and do 10 minutes on that. Like, it's not the most sexy segment. We've been doing it for 20 years, but like, come on. It's better than just making it up. And I don't even think that most audiences like get anything out of it anymore. Oh, wow. Kevin Durant's going to go play for the Wolves? Nobody believes that. Like, come on. So anyway, all right. We just had to, we had to dispel it. There's the amount of time it deserves. We did like 6 minutes. So there you go. All right, that'll wrap us up, though. Read Steven over at Bright Side of the Sun and check him out at PHNX. I will be back next week. We'll have Brandon on Monday. Well, we might do Saturday to recap the gold medal game. We'll see. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. Get that episode and more throughout the summer. I'll catch you guys next time.